Here we go. Hi, I'm Elsa. I'm a staff photographer for Getty Images based out in New York City. I cover primarily sports in the New York kind of metro region for the regular season. And for big events that I am lucky enough to be on, such as the World Cup and the Olympics, I get to travel. There are a lot of different sports that I cover. I cover not only NBA and NHL, Major League Baseball, NFL. I get to cover a few college events. The US Open tennis is here in Queens. So my job as a wire service photographer is to capture those defining moments, whether it's action or reaction, that people are going to be writing about and talking about later that day and beyond. Depending on the event, I have a game plan in my head. The more you know a sport, the more you can use that to your advantage to capture those moments so you don't miss anything. Baseball, for an example. Let's say the bases are loaded, the pitcher gets out of a jam. I know if he strikes out that batter, I'm gonna go straight to the pitcher to get that reaction. If he hits a home run, I immediately go to the batter, get that initial reaction. Then I go to the pitcher, and then I go back to the batter, rounding the bases while he meets his teammates at home plate to get the celebration. I looked at it, it was about 50 seconds from when that first pitch was delivered, the batter hit the ball, and the grand slam was hit. If you have a game plan in your head of where to go, you can walk away with 6 or 7 pictures from that moment within less than a minute that tell that story of not only from the defensive side, but from the offensive side. So as far as my equipment goes, I shoot with Canon. All of my lenses are Canon lenses. This is my basic kind of day-to-day sort of kit. And so let's dive right in, shall we? I have a 1DX Mark III. Most events that I shoot, I use between 2 and 3 camera bodies minimum. And then obviously if it's a bigger event and I'm using remote cameras, I'll have a bigger setup. So with the R series lenses, you can still use EF lenses, but you need this adapter. I'm starting to get some of the R series lenses as well. So here's a 70-200. With a telescoping zoom, if you're running around the sideline, it'll start to kind of drift after a while. It'll kind of start to sag a little bit. There's this lovely little lock function. So when you're running around, so that was kind of a nice addition that I saw. This lens here, this is my bread and butter sort of lens on the short side of things, 70-200 2.8. This is kind of your great overall lens that you could shoot tennis, golf, basketball, volleyball, all different sports where you just need that short telephoto. This is perfect for that. When you think of sport photography, you think of that big long glass, but there are a lot of things that you can do with some shorter lenses. Example is a few years ago, there was a really foggy Yankees game. They were playing the Twins, and there were a couple of nice pictures that I liked, but one of my favorite was of Stanton just walking out onto the field in the fog, and I shot that with a 24-70. It gets you something nice and wide if you need something wide like a 24, or if you need a little bit more closeness. And so often I use this and I set it at a 50. It just gives you a good bit of variety. Another favorite lens of mine is the 16-35 2.8. I use this a lot in remote camera work, or if I'm at a bigger event and I want to show a full stadium full of fans with action going on the court or on the field of play. This allows me to shoot this nice wide atmosphere picture, doesn't distort the ends. It's important to have clean backgrounds. A lot of us do that by using prime lenses and shooting wide open at say f2.8. So a big lens that I use often for a lot of sports is a 400 2.8, and I'm shooting it at 2.8 as often as I can. This is the version 2 Canon 400 2.8. I use this for everything, and football, basketball, baseball, soccer, you name it. This is my go-to lens. I love the bokeh of the lens. I love that it compresses the background really nicely. I love shooting it at wide open at f2.8. I've been pairing it with my adapter and my R3 lately, and it's been phenomenal. When comparing these two cameras, this is the DSLR, this is a 1DX Mark III, and this is the R3. So the mirrorless will shoot 30 frames a second. This shoots about 14. You can have a silent shutter with this, even when the silent shutter is disabled. So I have it on first curtain electronics, so you can hear the shutter going. It's still pretty quiet. So this is what's, how fast a 1DX Mark III and how loud it will be. Pretty fast. So this is the R3 on the electronic shutter, with a first curtain sync so you can hear it. A little faster. But if you shut off the first curtain mode and just put it straight on electronic, you can't really hear anything. So this is great for shooting something where it's really quiet. If you're a news photographer, if you're in a very delicate situation, if you're shooting golf, if anyone has ever shot golf, you know that you never shoot in a golfer's backswing, especially if you're really close to them, because they can hear this little shutters, how quiet it is outside, and they get really angry. If you use something like this and you're shooting in their backswing, they can't hear it, and then they won't yell at you, and their caddy won't yell at you, which is a glorious thing. What I really love about basketball is those really tight games and those buzzer beater moments. And when an athlete shoots that last second shot to win the game, the celebration is going to be epic. Certainly in this picture, this was one of those buzzer beater sort of moments. They beat Connecticut to advance to the final game, and just the pure joy in both of their faces is what really makes it for me. So this is what I look for as a sport photographer. I'm drawn to more of these celebration moments than I am, say, the action pictures, because I feel like there's a more of a human connection with these kind of pictures. I like to shoot a little tighter down court just to get that sort of chaos. And this picture from a Lakers-Knicks game shot this season, I really just loved how the defense just swarmed all over Julius Randle. And so that's what I look for, to try and find something a little different, but it's still hard action. When you're covering the same thing over and over and over again, you try and find different angles to tell a different kind of side of the sport. Sport photographers often use remote cameras to do that, to be in two places at once. And so I set up a remote camera on the shot clock. The lens that I used for that was a 35, and I used a 1DX Mark III camera body. And so I focused it on the net, and with the idea of using it for the net cutting after the championship. You see the confetti on the floor. She's looking back at her team, and she's waving that piece of net. It helps kind of break up that set of images with, action, reaction, moments shot with a 300, moments shot with a 70-200, and then you have the remote camera shot with a 35. This winter, I did some short track speed skating at the games in Beijing. If you're not familiar with short track and relay, when they're getting ready to switch off skaters, they sort of mirror each other and pair each other on the inner part of the ice. I was trying to find a way to not only show this, but show that they are moving very, very quickly. I slowed that shutter speed down to a 1/15 of a second. And for me, I always want something sharp. And so I was focused on that lead skater on the main part of the race. It took a couple of laps around to kind of frame it to just where everything paired up nicely. I find that when shooting at a slower shutter speed, it is easier to do the pan pictures with a DSLR than it is the mirrorless. I think more so because of the timing sort of thing of it. You're looking through the viewfinder that's looking through a mirror, and so you're seeing what the actual frame is, whereas the mirrorless, it's an approximation. Even just that little millisecond of time, it makes it a little more difficult to do sort of a pan picture with a mirrorless. At least I found that's kind of a learning curve that I'm running into with switching between a DSLR and a mirrorless camera. At the Olympics in Tokyo, I covered a few sporting events, but one of the favorite pictures that I have from it is of the women's bronze medal soccer game between the US and Australia. So there was this one shaft of light in the corner, and thankfully Megan Rapinoe was going after the ball in this shaft of light. I love that her and the defender are making the exact same sort of motion. I like to look for patterns. The fact that the Olympic Rings logo is behind it is all lit up. I thought that this was perfect, and it couldn't get any better. For the World Sport Photography Awards, I chose a variety of images to enter based on the look and feel of them, the different techniques used. The first picture I want to talk about is a velodrome picture. It was from the 2016 Olympics in Rio. I had never shot velodrome before, and it was the craziest thing I'd seen. And I used a 1DX Mark II and a 24-70 f2.8. I shot this at 1/4 of a second, and as they were rounding the corner, I would start my pan as they were coming up, and then as soon as they come by, and try and mimic the speed of the cyclist so I could keep at least the helmet sharp. Another image that I used as an entry was handball. The Norwegian player Stine Bredal Oftedal is flying into the air. She's just getting mauled by the defense. This image was shot with a 70-200 on a 1DX Mark II. This image placed gold in the World Sport Photography Awards. So this was from a Yankees-Red Sox wild card playoff game. I've shot enough baseball to know that when I hear the crack of the bat, I kind of know if it's going to be a grounder or if it's going to be pop fly out. And so I knew this was going to be an infielder. It was kind of popping fast to Brock Holt, who was on the Red Sox at the time. I used a 400, and it's his perfect frame, full frame. He fits in nicely. And what I really love is that he just gets so high off the ground. It just really makes baseball fun. I love everything that I do, and I don't want to change any of it, but maybe just expand into a few more sports that are, shoot some more rugby or some lacrosse, things that I don't get to do often enough and that are still really fun and really exciting.